Hello and welcome back to another episode of Spotlight Hour. Today, we've got a very, very exciting guest with us with a definitely a special story. Maribel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here and thank you for inviting me. So, I guess I'll start with telling you a little bit about myself. So, I have been in the mental health space since 2003. That's when I graduated from UCLA. Grew up in Southern California, to immigrant parents. Very, very passionate about helping my community and just trying to figure out a way to do that. And so, got my master's in social work. So, 2003, I jump into working in mental health in the school system. And through that, I really learned how much I loved mental health specifically. Um, so I decided to open up a private practice in 2008 on the side, serving people in Spanish because there was not a lot of therapists that spoke Spanish at the time. Um, and so, yeah, from 2008 to 2016, I had my first private practice. And, I was really having fun doing the therapy part, but really struggling with the insurance part. I wanted to serve victims of crime. I wanted to serve people who, could use their insurance to see me. But unfortunately, when I graduated with my master's, I didn't have any background in business. And so I did what I loved. I did the service, I provided that, but then I didn't spend enough time working on my business. Billing always took, last. That was always the last thing I did. Um and then I would be seeing people for a month, 2 months, and then by the time I would hear back from the billing from the insurance companies, it was like, "Oh, sorry, but we can't cover any of these because XYZ." It would be some sort of logistical nightmare, that then I would have to be making calls and, being on the phone for hours type of thing, and it just got to a point where it was really stressful because I already had my regular job. I had, my kids, and then I was also dealing with, some medical stuff, which actually ties into my mental health, which I'll get into. Um, and so I was like, 2016, I'm done. I cannot do this private practice thing right now. I'm just gonna focus on healing, focus on my family, focus on my work at the school district doing mental health for them. So after I had my first son, so I'm gonna kind of segue. So through college and grad school, I actually used to teach fitness and self-defense. And I know, it's so weird, right? So
That's
random,
awesome.
but I loved it. And it was part of, again, that passion of working with people who were victimized and, teaching people how to defend themselves and really feeling good in your body, feeling in control. And so I was very, I used to teach. I was very fit. But after I had my son, even though I looked a certain way, my health was horrible. Like my liver enzymes were high. I had a thyroid condition. I had an autoimmune condition, and you would never know it by just looking at me. And my energy was horrible. And so when that happened, it led me down a path of looking into what is the healthiest, not a bodybuilding diet, but what is the healthiest way of eating to kind of help my body to heal. And so that's when I, really dove into functional medicine. What does that mean? How to allow your body to maximize its ability to heal itself. And I reversed my autoimmune condition. And so as I learned about all that stuff, I realized that as I was also studying to be a therapist, I was like, I feel great. Mental clarity, depressive symptoms are low, anxiety is low. And I recognized that it had a lot to do with also what I was eating and what I was doing as far as the functional medicine and the exercise and all that. So I got a certification in integrative medicine for mental health to again really help not just myself, but my clients. And so fast forward, so that was, 2008 to 2016. 2016, I'm like, I gotta shut down my private practice because of the insurance billing nightmares. And then I focus on my family and doing the work at, a high school. And then COVID hit. And everybody's working from home. And there's so many mental health issues happening, and I have no one to refer my teenagers to. Everyone's full. And as you know, what happened at the time, everybody was staying home. They're eating, they're drinking, they're like scared, all these things are happening, and there aren't enough resources. And so I'm thinking, well, it's now, years after I had closed my previous practice, and now you can actually see people on telehealth. So my overhead isn't as high if I were to decide to do this work. And now enter companies like Alma, like Headway, that are able to kind of help with the billing stuff. So you don't have to do all of that start to finish. And so that kind of shifted, my kind of motivation to, let me try this again. Let me just do it a little bit differently this time and work on the business side of my private practice. Um, so I'm gonna stop there because I've been talking a lot.
No, you're on a roll.
But that's kind of where that went. And along the lines of like my specializations and what I'm really passionate about, um, diabetes affects everybody, right? But specifically also in the Latino community, um, diabetes affects us a lot. And I feel like we don't always know and recognize kind of the correlation between diabetes and depression. And there's a lot of research to back that up. And so that's part of my passion is to really like serve the people that I serve in such a way that I educate them about, look, how do we look at your mental health holistically, not just the clinical work that we're doing and not just diving into trauma and like talking through your trauma, not taking away how important that is, but you need to have kind of a well-balanced plan that's sustainable for people so that, in the words of one of my professors, you work yourself out of a job. That's what you want because you never will, but your goal is to do that. I want people to learn to be at their best so that they can then move on and then I can serve other people. And so that's a big part of how I look at things and how I try to run things in my practice.
You are incredible. I absolutely love that. I especially love the outlook of integrating diet and just having healthier habits in your life as well because, if the extreme cases, but if, you're sitting at home eating only processed foods day in, day out, noon till midnight, all over the place with your diet and not actually looking inwards to take care of your own health, your mental health will suffer. What you eat plays a huge role in how you feel. And if you're just looking at one area, focusing on diving into trauma, like you said, and building that up, that's great. That's a huge, huge part of things. But there's so much that gets overlooked often as well, which is making sure that you're taking care of yourself as a whole. And I love that you bring that to the forefront when you're dealing and working with your clients.
Yeah, because a lot of people they either don't know that or they don't think about it or they underestimate the impact of it, right? Like, they might hear something here or there and they're like, yeah, yeah, okay, and I'm gonna keep doing what I do until something happens. Like, oh no, this is horrible. But we don't want to wait.
You never know how good you can feel until you get disciplined with it. What was the diet just out of curiosity, what was the diet that really kind of helped you and helped you reverse your autoimmune condition?
So the diet would be a whole foods, ketogenic, low glycemic, alkaline diet. So, there's all this buzz about, right, like keto and Whole30 and, different ones. But at the end of the day, there is so much out there to show that following a lower glycemic whole food, more alkaline way of eating, it's just kinder on your body. It reduces inflammation. And guess what? If you reduce inflammation, your brain also functions better. And, the focus on the protein sparing impact of the lower glycemic eating, making sure you're eating your moderate protein, and just really considering the quality of the food. Um, because, a lot of people, I think, follow keto or whatever, and they lose all kinds of weight, but then they do things like dirty keto, or they leave out, vegetables, they leave out greens, they leave out fiber, and that it can wreak havoc on your body. Like, you might lose weight, i.e., like I shared with you when I was originally doing like all my fitness and all that. I was eating a lot of protein, and I was eating, like, sugar-free this and sugar free that, and, like, non-fat everything. Um, but I felt horrible. And, when I kind of first learned about keto, I was doing it, but I wasn't necessarily doing it correctly. And so as I kept learning about it and learning about your body and how, it responds to different things, and learning about gut health and how serotonin is made, in your gut. And, all of that really impacts how I feel. Like, I feel it when I'm on it. And, when I start to be like, oh, let's have tamales, it's the southern dishes, let me have a couple of extra glasses of wine, and, why not? You start to feel it, and you start to realize how, oh, wow, that really does play a huge role. I remember just being prior to the low glycemic way of eating, I used to be really foggy mentally, right? Like, I had physical energy kind of to do what I had to do, and then the moment I would stop, it was like I was so tired. And then, like, mentally, I was like, "What was that again I had to do?" And, not being able to focus and drinking all this caffeine, and really, we don't need to do that. Like, our bodies can really make us feel great, but we have to give them what it needs.
Exactly. Exactly. I think there's a message for everybody out there listening to this as well. If you are experiencing anything like this, the brain fog, sluggishness, inflammation, restrict your diet. Give it at least 2 weeks. Give it a month if you can. Just eat some whole foods, eat a simple diet, and then begin to experiment with different foods. Add things back in, and you will feel the difference. If you're being strict, if you're being disciplined, if you're showing yourself that love and respect, to do that. When you add other foods back in, you will know the difference. I was speaking from experience here because I follow a primarily like a animal-based diet where I just like whole foods. I don't eat a lot of grains. I eat red meat. I will eat fish, greens, lots of fruit. And we're actually recording this in January of 2025 here, and holidays just passed. And I had a lot of fun around the holidays with some food for a few days, and I didn't feel great. I did not. My taste buds were happy, but oh my gosh, I felt like a sloth for a couple days there. But as soon as you break that and get back onto it, you notice the difference. And if you've never tried anything like this before, every part of your life will get better. I cannot encourage you more to give this a shot. But getting back on track here, talk to me about when you reopened your practice. What has that journey been like?
Wow. So when I reopened my practice, I just realized that I needed to focus on working on my business and not just working in my business, because it was just yeah, I used to just focus on the things I like. I like to see people. I like to talk to people. I'm a social person. So I'm like, I like this part. But I just realized that if I didn't set those boundaries, I I had to take the time to really learn how to make sure people knew who I am. Make sure people could find me. on my website. So I've spent a lot of time working on my website. I'm from the era of non-social media. So for me, social media is very challenging. And I'm very private too. So I don't, but I worked with a coach and she's like, well, people want to know who they're talking to. And I'm like, I guess they do. I don't know. But so it's been a journey to kind of allow myself to be humble enough to be open with others about who I am, what I do, and what I've been through. So one of the things about COVID is that um I was married, and in the middle of COVID, um my ex-husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore, and it was a surprise to me, just so you know. So it was I I was going through a lot at the time. And so sharing that journey, sharing that journey with other people and kind of being more public about, obviously I wouldn't throw anyone under the bus or, give people too much information, but just the pain of what that feels like to now be a single mom and to now just kind of feel like your life is flipped upside down. And then obviously I still have to provide, I still have to be okay. And then being open about like my spiritual journey and my faith, and how I incorporate my faith into my healing and my growth, and just being open with people about those things. I think as therapists, a lot of times we try not to be the center of attention because that's not really why we do what we do. But again, shifting the perspective, it's not about getting attention, it's about being genuine with people so people know who you are. And then they're like, "Oh, I hear her story. I can relate to her story. You know what? I think she can help me." And people don't feel alone. I think that's one of the worst things people can feel when they're going through something difficult, is to feel like you're alone and nobody understands you. And when you do start to share, you realize, there are a lot of people out there, and yes, everybody struggles. Just because you're a therapist doesn't mean you have no struggles. So so I think that was something that I learned, that I shifted in what I was doing. And the other thing was also, this time around I've been maximizing on the things that I'm really strong at. And what I mean by that is I am a geek. I love to learn and I love to help other people grow. So I love to help other people grow as a therapist, but also I've been doing supervision of master's level therapists for a long time. So really growing that piece of that's a part of my practice actually, is to support other therapists with clinical supervision and to share my what I've learned throughout the years and what I learn every day, because like I said, I love to read, I love to listen to podcasts, and I love to share what I'm learning with others that also serve, because I know it can be hard to spend a lot of time. I mean, you can't be learning all the time, but I do enjoy it, and so I like to kind of be able to learn, break it up into manageable chunks, and then share it with the people that I supervise, share it with interns, um, and, provide services, out in the community, pro bono stuffs here and there. Um, I do a lot of body-based work as well, and so I do techniques like EMDR. And there's this really cool group technique you can do that's a nervous system regulation technique. So, for example, I've done that at like a domestic violence place that provides services to survivors of domestic violence. I've done that at the Valley Prevention Treatment Center, just to help people get that physical calming of the nervous system, because when you've gone through stuff, you honestly don't even remember what it feels like sometimes to just have your nervous system be calm. You know, you're just on and you just don't realize it. And that impacts you. It impacts your immune system. It impacts our patience. It impacts our ability to think. Um, and so it's really powerful to be able to provide those services, teach people how to do that, and then have them walk away after even one time, having techniques that they can use in their day-to-day life. So, that I think those are some of the things that shifted for me, this new time around in my practice.
That is an absolutely incredible shift. And also for everybody listening, you guys just got a master class in social media. I hope you're taking notes. How has I really wanna lean into that first here is just the vulnerability, the openness, the honestness with your audience on social media. Has that fueled the growth of your practice?
I believe so. I've had people share with me that they appreciate me sharing my story. I've had more people connecting with me. I I'll be honest, I don't know that I've seen it turn into like, "Oh, because of that, now I have all these people reaching out to get services." But it's more about, um, what I put out there, I get feedback that people find it helpful, that again, it resonates with people. And then I've actually had other professionals reach out to me to just, pick my brain about things as a result of that. And all of that at the end of the day, if I'm helping the helpers, it's still helping the community. And so thus far, that's been where I've seen that shift. Um, but what we do again is to help people. And so I'm sure it's helping the clients in a different way. And if they're my client, for example, and they do look me up, because that happens all the time. And now they're seeing this, then they feel like they can connect to me more and they feel comfortable with me and, um, at the end of the day, that's what we want. We're all going through this journey of life and to be able to feel like you have people that are in your corner that can empathize with you and, nobody's perfect. Nobody's, "Oh, they must not have any problems." No, we all do.
You
It's
guys
just
have
how
our own
we handle
stuff.
it, right? Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
just the I really wanna commend you for taking that leap and being vulnerable, being open, being honest, sharing yourself, your journeys, your struggles, your experiences. And because the way you do it, it doesn't sound like you're expecting anything in return. You're doing it just for the sake of, maybe one person sees this. Doesn't matter if a million people do, but if one person sees this and it makes a difference in their life, then it was worth it. And I think we need a whole lot more of that in this community. I think it's because it's scary. It's daunting to lower those shields, put those walls down, and say, "This is me." It's not an easy thing to overcome for most people. And, when you do that though, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities where you could connect with people that you never would have met unless you started doing this. And you starting doing this could have this magnificent kind of avalanche snowball effect in so many different people's lives. One person sees something that you posted and they got something really, really good from it. They go share it with their friends and it keeps compounding over and over and over. I think that's absolutely amazing. I really, really love that you're doing that.
Thank you, James. That's the goal. That's
I also love all the community work that you talked about doing. I think that is it's gotta be fun, first off, like you were saying, being able to go into a group and give people tools and watch them walk out after just, what, 1 hour, 1 session there, and know that you've given them equipment and tools that they can use and put into place and put into practice
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah, that is life-changing. I for me, it's life-changing as the provider. So, just to see, right, to see people just respond and I ask for feedback, right? I ask for feedback like, "How has this shifted for you?" And I've literally had people like, "I was so mad that you made me think of that thing that I didn't wanna think about," because our tendency is to avoid, right,
Mm.
those things that are very painful. But after it was like I could finally, like, let this heavy weight that's how, they describe it, let this heavy weight just fall off, finally. And it felt so liberating and so free, and I'm so grateful, and so it's very sweet, and so for me, just to be able to hear that, it's like, "Okay, so, by the grace of God, we're doing something." Something
I
that's
love
benefiting people, so
one of the things I wanna ask you about is when you were starting your practice back up, Right, you said it was in the midst of COVID, still
Mhm.
lockdown season. How are you getting clients to your doorstep? How are you getting out there? How are you connecting with people and growing your caseload?
So I started with kind of building my business first. So I started with my website. I started with um, connecting with companies like Alma, like Headway. Um, I looked into growth therapy as well, kind of the middlemen that can kind of do the billing stuff for me so I could just focus on what I love to do. So that's how I started. Um, and then eventually, I just kind of started to shift and change the percentage of, okay, I'm going to start to focus more on, you know, the supervision. So make it more of a 50-50 where I'm doing supervision for half the time and then I'm seeing clients the other half the time. And, so just kind of looking at what's the best use of my time and when I say the best use of my time, again, how to really reach the most people. And then I started to hire therapists to be a part of my practice. Um, because again, then the reach is, there's only so many people I personally can see. And I'm happy to see as many people as I can see. But at some point, if I'm able to help a lot more people by growing my therapists and then being there to support them, and then doing, for example, like with some of my therapists, I'm able to, because we work with victims of crime a lot. So I'm able to jump in and provide some EMDR sessions because my therapist may not have the training in that, but I do. And so now this client that normally would be priced out of something like EMDR because it can get really expensive, but now they're able to benefit from getting those techniques and those interventions, if you will, just by being a part of, my group, working with my team. Um, and just helping, again, my therapist grow. I think when we first start out in the field, we're really excited and our heart's in the right place, but we're just kind of white knuckling through, like, not really sure. And so, I mean, I've been doing this 21 years now, so I feel really comfortable with the unknown and I feel really comfortable like where at my pace of growth as far as what I'm doing with clients. And I like the gray now, whereas before it was really scary. It's like, I don't know, what do I do with, you know? And so helping my therapist build that capacity and build that confidence. And then, I have a couple of interns as well that provide services for free, like just free. So again, people reaching out, they may not have, they hear about me through whether it's my social media or, my website, and they're looking for services and, they don't have the money, I'm able to get them some support. They might be on a wait list somewhere else with a therapist, and I'm able to provide them like a therapy intern to help them for now, get them into a group, somehow be able to provide that service, fill in the gap. I have contracts with which I didn't talk too much about this, but it's kind of important. Because of my background with teens and like youth and kids and families, um, I do contract with DCFS, so Department of Children and Family Services in Southern California. So that's basically Child Protective Services. So we're talking the kids with the most I shouldn't say the most trauma, but, we definitely know they have a lot of trauma because of just the transiency of their life, and they're no longer with their biological parents, they're wards of the state, that kind of thing. So, I'm able to provide some specialized services to those kiddos, um, because again, like, you're it's not even their fault, and, like, they start out already with all of this trauma that they can't even they don't even know what it's like to not have it. And now you're again at higher rates of disease, higher rates of illness because your suppressed immune system, because your HPA axis is just constantly going off. And, just being able to educate and help and support these teens to be able to get a little bit of control of their body and, their reactions to things and calming their mind and, things like that. So,
You do so much for the community. I'm really, really grateful that there's people like you out there. It's thank you. Thank you for doing all of that. How are you guys marketing yourselves? Is it through all these community initiatives?
yes, it's through the work that we do in the community and, also, like I mentioned, working with Alma and Headway, Psychology Today, people reach out. I've done Yelp a little bit. I've tried to maximize on my Google business page. Again, like not super sure how to do all that, but I just kind of try to figure it out and, just focus more on it than I would have in the past. So, yeah, that's what we do.
Those are good strategies. I like that quite a bit. I know we're coming close to the end of our time here, but I wanted to go back in time and ask you what brought you into this field originally?
So, um, when, I think I mentioned earlier that my parents, I grew up in an immigrant household. So my parents both came from Mexico. And they were very humble people, and they were always like, "You know what? We're so grateful to this country for providing these experiences." Come Reagan in the '80s, and he said, "Hey, amnesty." So my parents were like, "Yeah, we get to be citizens." And so, um, and school was always such a welcoming place for me as a young person looking at, like, the, yuppie I grew up in the '80s, like, yuppie culture, right? Like, "Oh, y I wanna be a young urban professional," and education was a way of upward mobility, I really loved having that opportunity and teachers that were supportive, but I noticed people didn't necessarily, in the schools treat my parents with the same respect and dignity, and it just broke my heart because 'cause I'm like, "You know what? I want the world at large to always get people to treat them with respect and love and guidance so that they can make the most out of their lives." And even though we grew up poor, I had 2 loving parents, but I grew up kind of in a rough area where I saw friends that didn't have both loving parents, and they struggled, and then sometimes they got into trouble, and then, they had no one to turn to, and then they turned to, things that they shouldn't have been doing, and then, it's like this snowball. And I guess I always felt like if education was so important to me and it helped me to achieve what I want to do that for other kids. And I feel like, and families. And so I knew one day when I work at a school, because I knew I was going to work at a school, I'm gonna make sure that every parent that walks through that door feels accepted, feels respected, and that they're not judged. And they come in and we work together to help their kid, right? To help their student, to help their youth. So that was a big deal for me. And then beyond that, just helping teenagers at this time in their life that is so critical to recognize that even if they have it really tough, they have choices. And these choices will lead them in certain pathways and helping them to see that, helping them to know that their feelings matter and that they're valid, but their feelings don't have to equal their action, right? You can feel things, but you can't just react because if you don't think about that reaction, then you basically traumatize yourself even more than you've already, and so that's kind of the view that I have about how to serve my community based on what I saw growing up. And I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I had and the people that I've met along the way that have helped me. Like I mentioned, the self-defense and the fitness. You know, I I walked into, when I was like 19, 20 years old, walked into Krav Maga National Training Center and I'm like, I need a job. Yeah, these are amazing people are like, "Oh, okay, we'll give you a job and
That is awesome.
give me an opportunity." And, so being able to extend that to others is a blessing, you know? So that's where that comes from.
I think that's amazing. I know we're like I said, we're running out of time, but I got one more question I really wanted to
Yeah,
ask you.
sure. Let's do it.
What would be one of the biggest pieces of advice that one of the things that first comes to your mind when I ask for people who are looking to start up their own practice, people who are getting ready to take that leap? What are some things that they should look out for? What are some obstacles they might run into? What would be your best pieces of advice for them along that way?
My best piece of advice would be, well, a couple. Number 1, um, is that it's okay to make mistakes. And instead of feeling shame about your mistakes, because I did feel a lot of that in the beginning, the first round, just really look at it and try to find a solution with people that know more than you in that area. Because I think in the beginning, I tried to do it all myself and I realized that didn't work. And so, again, this time around, it's like, no, there are people that know more about business than I do. So I'm going to reach out to them and get advice. I'm going to talk to other therapists who are making it work and I'm going to get their advice and just constantly, it's okay to shift directions. If you're going in one direction and for some reason it's not working, it's okay to try something different. So that would be my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is whatever you do, um, try to find something that's genuinely that you're passionate about, genuinely, because that will lead you to a place where you just enjoy what you're doing, and, I mean, you lose track of time. So both of those things I would say are really important because you're gonna do this for 8, 10 hours a day. You really need to not burn out. And the only way to do that is to really enjoy what you're doing.
I think that is absolutely stellar advice. Maribel, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I want people to be able to reach out to you just to support you. Where can they find you at?
So the best place to find me is on my website. um, and that is www.zenandhealth.net.
That'll be linked down below, everybody.
Yes, so that's the best place to find me, and then, I'm always accessible, I answer emails, I return phone calls, so, everything's on my website, so I'm happy to talk to, whether it's other therapists or, clients that are considering EMDR or EMDR groups because I have a new EMDR group on Wednesdays. Yeah, just anything that I can do to support, I'm happy to do that.
Maribel, thank you so much. Everybody, all those links will be down in the description of this episode. Thank you again so much for your time and your insight, your lessons and your experiences, and for also what you do for your community. You are
Thank
truly making the world a better place every day.
Thank you, James. It was so nice talking to you today.
Likewise, until next time.
All right, bye.